Speaker, to this Tariff Act 1988 repeal bill, and as third speaker I only have 5 minutes, and so I'm not going to waste too much time traversing the history. Suffice it to say that in the fourth Labour government, of which Sir Roger Douglas was a key member, there was huge economic restructuring and consequent dislocation, particularly of 300,000 people who lost their jobs in the process. While we still stand by some of the economic restructuring, it was a period that saw the Labour Party nearly tear itself apart because of the extreme implications and effects of these policies. Now Sir Roger has come back to finish the job, and the Labour Party stands against this bill tonight and will stand against Sir Roger finishing this job. The 1988 Tariff Act was legislated to begin with in order to provide for changing regulations around tariffs and the implementation of the government's plan to lower tariff rates to below 20% by 1992. And then throughout the 1990s, the national government repeatedly unilaterally lowered tariffs to the point where they were 1/5 of late 1980s levels. In 1998, the government passed the Tariff Zero Duty Removal Bill, which mandated for the reduction of all tariffs to zero by 2006. But the new Labour government in 2000 amended this bill, placing a freeze on all further unilateral tariff reductions until 2005. And tariff reductions would continue as part of free trade agreements. For Sir Roger to characterise our free trade agreements as being tariff reduction mechanisms only is to do them a disservice. They are much more complex mechanisms these days than that, which is why the logic of countries which have no tariffs entering into free trade agreements with New Zealand doesn't stand up, because they continue to make gains from the other provisions in free trade agreements that have nothing to do with tariff reductions. And so that logic is out of date, Sir Roger, and needs to be updated. The new free trade agreements may well contain tariff reductions, and frequently do, and they are done on a calculated and measured basis in a way that allows some protection of New Zealand industry, and at the same time provides New Zealand with a few remaining bargaining chips. Not the only things, Sir Roger, not the only things, but a few remaining bargaining chips that we may be able to deliver in the course of free trade agreements. However, they are complex mechanisms these days, and they are not simply about tariff reductions. And so we have remaining tariffs on a number of goods, particularly in textiles. We have 5% custom duty on textile imports and a range of other products imported from overseas. These products include processed foods, machinery, steel, some plastic products, and a 10% custom duty applies to a few imports, mainly clothing, footwear and carpet. And those tariffs apply on goods that are still made in New Zealand. Mr. Speaker, I want to go to a press release that was made by the Council of Trade Unions at the time that this government and Minister Tim Grosser, the Minister of Trade, together with Simon Power, the Minister of Commerce, announced that they would not be proceeding on any more unilateral tariff reductions. Peter Conway, the CTU Secretary, said that although the level of tariffs provide much less security in respect of local industry and employment than in the past, they still make a difference to sectors such as carpets, clothing, textile and footwear, as well as plastics and whiteware. He went on to say the eventual phase-out of tariffs on items such as clothing in the context of the free trade agreement with China, and the likelihood that tariff reductions will feature in other such trade agreements, mean that it does not make sense for New Zealand to undertake unilateral tariff reductions. The process of arriving at tariff reductions these days, Sir Roger, is a much more measured and calculated affair. And so they are now done in the context of complicated and very sophisticated
Sorry to
free
interrupt
trade
the member.
agreements.
Her time has expired.